Hello, my dear students. So, in this particular lecture, we will be discussing on the characteristics of an alternator, or rather, first we will focus on the looks of an alternator, that is, the cross section of an alternator. So, here a typical AC generator on an alternator has been presented. So, this is a typical AC generator. An AC generator is also called an alternator. So, the parts which are present, so this is a cross section arrangement. So it is a cross section. So it has some parts. So we have the field coil, and here always remember that the field coil is rotating, and the field coil is placed in the rotor. The rotor is the rotating part of the machine, and the armature conductors is placed in the stator. Stator is the static part. So this is the front alternator housing. This is the fan of the alternator for cooling purpose, and this is the pulley. So here the mechanical force is given. These are the bearing and the slip rings for current collection. So slip rings are present in an AC machine, and commutator segments and brushes are present in a DC machine. So this is the cross section of an alternator. So a modern AC alternator or a generator consists of rotating magnets, which is known as the field coil, and a stationary coil, which is known as the stator. So the brushes carry current into the field coil via slip rings, because the rotor is rotating, and power has to reach to the field coil, which is done by means of a slip ring. So now a schematic diagram of the basics has been presented over here. So you see, here we have a circuit connection. Here this is the rotating part, and here we have the field. So what is happening at the output? We are getting an AC in the output. So it is measured in volts and symbolized by E. So from 0 degree to 180 degree, it is encountering the positive half cycle, with the maximum value of the voltage occurring at 90 degree, and the negative maxima is occurring at value of 270 degree, that is minus E. Here it is having plus E, and the frequency is given by F, and F is equal to 1 by the time period. So during each revolution of the field coil, the stator gets a shot of the south magnetic field and one of the north magnetic field. So this reversal of the fields moving from poles is why alternator creates an alternating current. So this is the basic principle of an alternator. So here you see, most modern alternators contain built-in electronic voltage regulator that I was talking in the last lecture. So this entire device is molded into heat-proof, weatherproof ceramic, which is not serviceable except by replacement. So you have to replace the entire voltage regulator. Because of their extreme reliability, it is not required very often. So now let us study that how do we select an alternator for application in an automobile. So you see, because a generator is operated by an engine driven belt, it uses significant amount of horsepower. It is an engine driven belt and it uses significant amount of horsepower, and higher the output rating of the generator, more is the horsepower. So the power output, that is P out is proportional to the HP rating. So in a race car, horsepower is a serious consideration because your power output should increase. However, most competition vehicles, which is a race car, has relatively low current demands, ignition and fuel pump mostly, so they can get with a low output generator. On the other hand, an off-road vehicle with a bumper full of driving lamps will require higher output generator. Thus the horsepower must be sacrificed. So actually the power output required by a racing car, they can have a low output generator because you see they have relatively low current demands. Injection and the fuel pump mostly, these two are the main requirement. But on the other hand, a normal vehicle with a bumper full of driving lamps will require a high power output generator. Thus the horsepower must be sacrificed. So the accessories in an off-road vehicle is large in number, and so there you have to sacrifice the horsepower rating. So how do you know how big is big enough? So all the boils down to the generator output, which is rated in amperes. So that is the I rated. This will be our focus, and this should be rated in amperes. So the amperage output must be at least equal to the total current drawn by all the electrical load in the system. So the I load, that should be equal to summation of II, why I is equal to 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, these are all stands for different accessories of the vehicle, like the lights, the wipers, all the electronic gadgets, everything. So the amperage output must be at least equal to the total current drawn by all the electrical loads in the system. Otherwise the battery must supply current to keep everything running. So there should also be enough excess output to keep the battery charged. So the battery has to be kept charged. So the battery must supply current to keep everything running. That should be met by the battery. And there should be enough excess output to keep the battery charged. These two things have to be there. So the restorations, there are some guidelines. So go with the factory original part. If authenticity is important, just be sure that the generator output is up to the specification. That has to be taken care of. So as an extra insurance, have the old one rebuilt and tested by the generator shop. So race cars, dun buggies and kit cars, go at least one size bigger or larger than the minimum needed to power all the loads in the system. So you have to keep some buffer power capacity. So add up the current drawn of each electric device you plan to use, including the ignition coil. Now for everyday vehicles, if you are just adding a pair of driving lights, a stereo or similar accessory to your street car, the factory original generator should be adequate. But if you are into competing with the light output of the sun when driving at night, your driving lamps may overtax the standard generator. So at night time what will happen, you will require the more generator power because you will turn on all the lights, maybe the headlight, everything. So it's best to go for one size larger. So that is known as factor of safety or buffer size. So many auto manufacturer provides a higher output of the generator on the cars equipped with air conditioning, and one of these factory generators may be suitable to handle the accessories that you are installing. So if you are buying a used or rebuilt generator or salvaging a one part of the other parts of the car, so how do you determine the output? So first, physical size is not a clue. A physical size will not give you much idea. So what you have to look? You have to look for an identification code of the generator. It may be a color, a part number, or actual the rating of the generator, that is the actual ampere rating. So compare the code to the manufacturer specification in the appropriate shop manual or a dealer part book. So these are some guidelines. So this is all about the generator selection. So you have to meticulously select the generator when you are employing it in a automobile vehicle. That is very important. So next comes the electrical paths. So electrical paths are basically the wires, which is the circuit. Actually it has some start point, it has some end point, that is a circuit. A circuit is a path for the flow of the current from one point to another, and it has to be a closed path. Only then power can flow. So wires are the most obvious electrical paths in an automotive electrical system because they carry current to various electrical components. The internal circuitry of some modern electrical components use PCB or printed circuits instead of wires. So they are another type of electrical path. So to complete the circuit between an electrical source, which is the battery, and the load, that is the electrical component, a return path or ground has to be provided. So let us study this with an example or a basic schematic diagram, you can say. So suppose you have this battery. And these are the electrical loads which is connected to the battery, say L1, L2, L3, like this. So current will originate from the positive terminal of the battery and it will flow like this. So suppose the current in this branch is I1, in this branch it is I2, in this particular branch it is I3, and here all the currents will again sum up as I. Suppose this current is I, and it will again meet at this point as I and end in the negative terminal. So I should be equal to I1 plus I2 plus I3. So this is known as KCL or Kirchhoff's current law, and the Kirchhoff's current law has to be satisfied in this particular case. And what they are saying, that a ground path must be provided. So there should be a reference path which is called ground. So ground is the reference path. So generally the negative terminal of the battery, it is grounded. So here similarly a schematic is there. So you see the negative terminal here is grounded if this is the positive terminal. So here also the electrical load is grounded. So I can draw this particular thing like this. So if this is the battery, so this is the positive terminal, this is the negative terminal, and after going here you are having one switch in series. So let this be the switch, and this is the lamp, and this is also grounded, and this is also grounded. So as a whole I can join them, I can short these two because this is also ground, this is also grounded. So point A and B are having the ground potential, so they can be shorted, and it will look something like this. So what will happen? Power will flow when the switch is closed, and this lamp will glow, and ground should be there. So ground is also for, to some extent, for safety purpose, and also it is a common reference. So the ground has to be provided for safety purpose, and this ground is known as electrical reference. And this way we have different types of load connected to the battery, and these are the electrical paths, and for each load there should be corresponding one electrical path. So if there are n number of loads, there should be n number of electrical paths. So this is the actually trajectory of the different current. So I1 is having one electrical path, I2 is having one electrical path, I3 is having for electrical path. Suppose I1 stand for the headlights, I2 stand for the wipers, I3 stands for all the gadgets. So for each of these devices you are having one electrical path. And what is the resistance of the path? That is the equivalent resistance of this accessory. This way you can simplify the circuit, and the circuit is simplified like this. You will get one equivalent circuit. This is called the equivalent circuit. So we have an idea that what is meant by an electrical path. So in the next lecture we will be discussing about the wires which are present. So we will stop over here for today. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.